My days had settled into a rhythm as steady and quiet as the morning light filtering through the curtains. Each dawn, I found solace in the simple ritual of brewing tea, the steam curling softly into the air as if carrying whispers from the past. But that morning, as sunlight spilled across the worn oak table, everything changed. The front door opened abruptly, and there he stood, Jonathan, my only son, not the boy I had cradled, but a man transformed by ambition and cold resolve. His eyes no longer held the warmth I remembered. Instead, they were edged with something sharp, something I could not yet name. Then came the words, "Mother, you're legally incompetent. The court has agreed with me." The sentence hit me like a stone dropped in still water, sending ripples of shock and pain spreading through my very being. In the kitchen that had once been a refuge, I stood trembling, my hands barely able to hold the warm teacup. Jonathan's voice was steady, but lacked the love I once knew. "It's for your own good. You can't manage your affairs anymore." His betrayal was a blade cutting through the years of sacrifice, love, and hardship we had shared. The son I had nurtured, protected, and loved was now the architect of my undoing. I felt the floor shift beneath me, unsteady and unfamiliar. But it was more than a legal challenge. It was a profound wound to the heart. The boy who used to hold my hand through his fears had hardened into a man who saw me as an obstacle, a burden. I searched my memories, trying to pinpoint when the bond had frayed, when respect turned to entitlement. A quiet agony settled beneath my skin, wrapped tightly around confusion and hurt. My world seemed to tilt, the foundation shaken by the weight of his accusations. The countless nights balancing work and motherhood, the years of quiet support, it all seemed to collapse in that instant. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. I sank into the kitchen chair, the edges of the room blurring as my heart thundered wildly. The teacup in my hands felt strange and foreign, the warm steam no longer soothing but mocking. I thought of the sacrifices carved into every moment of my life, nights nursing Jonathan's fevers, mornings working late to pay for his dreams, the hollow spaces left by my husband's absence. Was it all erased by one cruel verdict? Tears, hot and insistent, threatened to spill, yet I blinked them away, unwilling to unravel in front of him. Instead, I forced my hands to steady, grasping the fragile threads of my dignity that still remained. The ache in my chest began to sharpen into something else, a fierce ember of resolve. Looking at Jonathan, I saw a man blinded by greed, deaf to the lessons lived and the love silently given. This was more than a contest over papers and courts. It was a struggle for respect, for truth, for the recognition of everything I had been and done. I drew a slow, steady breath, tasting the bitter flavor of betrayal. No longer was I simply a mother. I was a woman poised to reclaim her voice. The documents on the table were more than ink and paper. They were the beginning of a conflict demanding more than tears and silence. That betrayal hung in the air like a heavy cloud, threatening to smother all light. But beneath it, a storm stirred, a quiet one, born of patience and keen observation. My strength would not be loud defiance, but the calm and steady fire of resilience. As the minutes stretched, the house seemed to breathe with me, etched with memories of laughter and sacrifice, of love built and tested. I closed my eyes, recalling the endless nights funding music lessons on overtime pay, the tireless care after my husband's death. Those years had shaped me, toughened me. Though wounded deeply, my reservoir of love and pain still surged within. Jonathan stood ready to strip away my dignity and home, but I held a spark he could not see. Tears came again, no longer just for sorrow, but for the silent battles still to come, for a justice I vowed to pursue. In that fragile morning light, heavy with betrayal and quiet pain, I realized this was the beginning, not the end of my story. A journey would follow, testing my resolve, sharpening my mind. This vengeance would not be shouted, but woven with careful, unyielding strength. The light dimmed outside, but within me, a steely will ignited. I refused to be cast aside or diminished. The home I nurtured was more than walls. It was foundation laid in tears and tenacity. I took one last deep breath, clutching the hope and dignity left to me. My strength would come from the silent battles I chose to fight. If Jonathan believed he could break me, he would soon learn the quiet can roar the loudest when wielded with purpose. I did not answer Jonathan's harsh accusation with anger or tears. Instead, I embraced a silence so deep it seemed to envelop me completely. The house, once alive with warmth and familiar sounds, now felt hollow, every corner echoing with the weight of betrayal. But within that quiet, something began to grow, a steady strength, fueled by memories of a lifetime spent sacrificing for my family. My thoughts drifted back to the years when Jonathan was just a boy, when the world still seemed kind and full of hope. I remembered the long nights I worked extra hours to pay for his music lessons, the countless sacrifices made in the name of his future. Our modest dinners, my worn hands gently soothing his fears, all stitched together into an unbreakable bond. After his father's death, the burden grew heavier, but I carried it without hesitation. The woman Jonathan now confronted was not fragile. She was the foundation of our family, forged in quiet resilience. But the man who stood before me had changed. His eyes held entitlement, impatience, a blind ambition. He no longer saw the mother who raised him. He saw a barrier to his inheritance and freedom. That realization cut deeper than any legal attack. I was not simply being challenged on paper. I was being erased from the story of my own life. Though the sting of betrayal burned fiercely, clarity began to take hold. I understood the distance that had quietly grown between us, the silent resentments, the harsh words left unsaid, the growing expectations I could no longer meet. Jonathan viewed me through a lens of entitlement, blind to the sacrifices embroidered into every corner of our home. I allowed myself to feel the pain fully, but I refused to be consumed by it. Every memory of love and labor renewed my resolve to protect what was mine, my dignity, my home, my voice. This fight would be different from Jonathan's loud, reckless approach. Mine would be patient, precise, unstoppable. I retreated into reflection, reviewing old letters, bank statements, and receipts, proof of my hard work and dedication. I collected evidence like a careful weaver, gathering threads, piecing together a story Jonathan had tried to erase. This was not just about money, it was about reclaiming the narrative of who I was and all I had done. The house itself became a silent ally. I moved through the familiar rooms with purpose, drawing strength from decades of memories. Laughter echoing in the hallways, the faint strains of piano lessons, the quiet moments of comfort shared during times of sorrow. These walls bore witness to my sacrifices, and I would make them my fortress. Days bled into nights as I cataloged every detail, every receipt, every letter, every moment that spoke of my capability and sound mind. Among the faded photographs, I found the echoes of Jonathan's childhood, the hopeful smiles, the music recitals, and the milestones that had once marked our journey. These memories were not just moments in time, they were ammunition in the fight to come. In solitude, I was sharper than ever. The world outside faded, leaving only the steady pulse of determination within me. I did not lash out or weep uncontrollably. I gathered my emotions and transformed them into fuel for the long road ahead. Friends who had stood by my side through every chapter of life offered quiet support. They provided letters, testimonies, small validations of my capability and sound judgment. These whispers of truth grew into a chorus, ready to counter Jonathan's arrogance in that courtroom. I watched Jonathan from a distance, noting his overconfidence and careless missteps. His entitlement veiled his insecurity, and I used that knowledge as a weapon. Where he was reckless, I would be deliberate. Where he assumed victory, I would prepare a calculated response. Patience became my closest companion. I cataloged every slight, every manipulation, every attempt to diminish me. I understood that strength was not in loud confrontations, but in the slow, methodical gathering of facts and truths that could withstand scrutiny. At night, I reflected on the life lessons etched deep into my soul: the power of perseverance, the resilience born of pain, the dignity that comes from silent endurance. Tears would fall, but they were now markers of a love that refused to be extinguished. When I closed my eyes, I did not see defeat, but a path forward. I envisioned the courtroom as an arena where truth would shine and where the quiet mother would reveal a formidable heart. The journey ahead would be demanding, but I was ready. The bond between mother and son had frayed, but through justice and resolve, it could be rewritten. As the days slipped by, filled with planning and reflection, I transformed despair into hope. The house breathed with me, filled not just with old memories, but with the promise of strength to come. I was no longer a woman hidden in the shadows, but a force quietly rising to reclaim her life. This was the moment I chose to stand, not loudly, but firmly, ready to face the battles ahead, to protect not just a home, but the legacy of love, sacrifice, and quiet courage that defined me. The silent decision had been made. I was no longer a woman waiting to be broken. I was a storm gathering strength in the shadows, and Jonathan would soon learn that the quietest battles often yield the loudest victories. The days that followed my silent decision to fight were colored by a growing fire within me. Each conversation with Jonathan became more than words. It was a step in a game he had begun without realizing I intended to master. I could not let him twist my life's narrative with careless arrogance. My story, my house, my dignity, they were not his to seize with entitlement. I had to reclaim both my voice and my power, carefully, patiently, and without haste. My investigation began as quietly as the dawn breaking over the horizon. Evenings, once filled with silence, now echoed with the rustling of papers and the steady scratching of my pen. I immersed myself in every ledger, every bill, every past correspondence that could serve as a testament to my sharp mind and unwavering capability. The more I studied, the more evident it became how much Jonathan underestimated me. The legacy my late husband left wasn't just in wealth, but in knowledge, and I had kept that secret skill tightly folded within me until now. Clara, my lawyer and longtime family friend, became my first true ally. Her office welcomed me with the familiar scent of old books and judicial resolve. There, in the quiet confines of her workspace, I shared the folder of documents I had painstakingly gathered: bank statements showing my financial acumen, proof of payments for Jonathan's music lessons, and legal documents proving my ability to manage our affairs. Clara listened carefully, her eyes growing sharper as she delved into the details. "I knew there was more to this," she said softly, "but the evidence you bring is compelling. We will need to anticipate every move Jonathan might make. He believes you are weak, but you've shown otherwise." Her words were a balm and a beacon. Together we began outlining a plan, a strategy that would unfold like a delicate chess match, each piece moved with precision. We needed not just to defend, but to expose Jonathan's entitlement and disingenuous claims. The courtroom would be our arena, and I would not enter as a victim, but as a woman wielding truth as her weapon. The revelations I uncovered surprised even me. Jonathan had maneuvered through our family's assets with careless assumption, signing documents he did not fully understand, relying on hearsay and legal jargon he believed would shield him. Meanwhile, I had quietly maintained control, managing bills, investments, and our home's upkeep with a level of competence even I had not fully acknowledged until now. Every night, Clara and I rehearsed the arguments and the evidence, anticipating the questions, the doubts, and the subtle attacks Jonathan might launch. We prepared testimonies from friends and neighbors, individuals who could attest to my clear mind and careful management of our affairs. Letters were drafted, memory jogged, and facts sharpened until my case gleamed with undeniable clarity. Beyond the office, my home became the center of quiet preparations. I meticulously gathered and organized the physical proof of my management: files, receipts, old checkbooks, and photographs documenting years of care and responsibility. Each piece was a stone in the fortress I was building around my dignity. At times, fatigue threatened to overwhelm me. The mental and emotional toll of defending myself against the son I had loved fiercely was heavy. Yet, beneath the weariness, an invigorating sense of control took root. I no longer felt adrift in a sea of betrayal. I was steering my own course. Jonathan, oblivious to the storm I quietly summoned, continued to flaunt his assumed victory with arrogance. But I observed him carefully, noting his missteps and arrogance. He underestimated not just my strength, but my resolve. Where he rushed, I paused, each calculated move a step closer to reclaiming what was rightfully mine. I found solace in the small gestures of support from others: letters from family friends recalling my tireless dedication, testimony from neighbors who had witnessed my steady management of our home, and whispered encouragements from Clara's office. They gave voice to the silent story of sacrifice and patience that had long defined my life. Yet, as the day of reckoning approached, I remained composed, mindful of the power silence held. The courtroom would be the stage for a battle fought not with fury, but with conviction and clarity. I had chosen strategy over anger, patience over haste, and truth over concession. The house stood as a silent witness to my transformation. Walls that remembered Jonathan's first steps now echoed with the footsteps of a mother reclaiming her narrative. In quiet moments, I allowed myself to breathe the bittersweet air of determination, half grief, half hope. Each breath carried the weight of years of quiet suffering, yet also the promise of justice. The pages I reviewed, the files I assembled, and the strategy Clara and I formed were more than preparations. They were a reclamation of my life and dignity. Jonathan's challenge was not merely a confrontation. It was an invitation to reveal the strength I carried tucked beneath years of quiet endurance. I was no longer the woman who accepted betrayal in silence. I was a warrior armed with patience and wisdom, preparing to defend the legacy of love and sacrifice that had built our home. The days ahead demanded every ounce of my courage and intellect, but I welcomed the trial. In the quiet hours before sleep, I rehearsed not just the facts, but the fierce calm I would need. The courtroom would not hear a broken mother, but a resolute woman who refused to be diminished. I would present not only evidence, but the story of a lifetime of silent battles that had forged the mother Jonathan now foolishly aimed to silence. When the morning sun spilled its light on the horizon, I felt ready. The foundation of my plan was solid, built on truth, patience, and unyielding determination. This was no longer a fight for mere possessions. It was a struggle for justice, respect, and the reclamation of a life stolen in shadow. Jonathan might have believed he held the upper hand, but I had become something he never expected: a quiet storm gathering power and purpose. Soon, the court would see not only the mother he sought to dismiss, but the force of a woman who would not surrender her home or her dignity without a fight. And so, with every piece of evidence aligned and every argument rehearsed, I stepped into the coming battle with steady hands and a heart that beat with fierce resolve. This was my moment to transform betrayal into empowerment, to turn silent strategy into triumphant justice, and to emerge from the shadows with my truth intact. The morning I arrived at the courthouse, the sky was a muted gray, as if the world itself anticipated the gravity of what was to come. I ascended the broad stone steps slowly, every footfall grounding me deeper into the resolve that had taken root over weeks of silent preparation. The building's imposing facade felt less daunting than the storm that had brewed inside me, a storm now harnessed into quiet strength and purpose. Inside, the hum of whispered conversations filled the halls, mingling with the scent of polished wood and the faint echo of footsteps on marble floors. I felt 1,000 eyes upon me, some skeptical, others sympathetic, many merely curious. Yet, beneath the weight of their stares, my posture remained firm, my gaze steady. I was no longer the woman diminished by Jonathan's betrayal. I was a mother ready to reclaim her dignity and her story. Jonathan appeared shortly after, his usual confidence masking the subtle tension beneath. His smile was practiced, his steps assured as he moved into the courtroom like a man certain of victory. But I saw past the armor of arrogance. Behind it lay uncertainty, a flicker of doubt that I, now armed with truth and patience, was determined to exploit. The trial began, and Clara, seated beside me, radiated calm authority. Her unwavering presence was a constant reassurance, a reminder that my fight was shared, that justice was not just a hope, but a strategy grounded in truth. When I stood to speak, my voice surprised even me with its strength, calm, clear, unwavering. Every word carried the weight of years spent in sacrifice, every phrase a testament to resilience. I unveiled the story through the careful presentation of evidence. Bank statements chronicling my diligent management of finances, receipts for Jonathan's music lessons paid from my overtime earnings, bills for maintaining our home handled with meticulous care. These documents were more than proof of competence. They were chapters in the story of a life woven with dedication and love. As I spoke, I noticed shifts around the room. Doubtful eyes softened, respect flickered where suspicion once lingered. The narrative that had once been concealed in shadows began to surface, the image of a mother who had carried her family through grief and hardship with unwavering fortitude. Jonathan's carefully prepared claims began to unravel under the steady illumination of fact and truth. Clara's questioning of witnesses was incisive and precise. Friends, neighbors, and longtime acquaintances stepped forward to affirm my mental clarity and steadfast management of our affairs. Their testimonies acted as pillars, supporting the foundation of my case and chipping away at Jonathan's facade of entitlement. The judge, an experienced man, acquainted with the history of our family, listened intently. His eyes met mine momentarily, conveying unspoken recognition of the strength beneath my quiet exterior. Throughout the proceedings, he maintained a detached impartiality, but in that glance, I sensed a subtle acknowledgement of my truth. Jonathan's facade began to crumble visibly. Each faltering response, every hesitant pause, revealed a man unraveling beneath the pressure of truth. The arrogance that had once made him appear invincible increasingly seemed fragile and misplaced. I realized I was no longer facing a carefree adversary, but a man confronting the power of a woman he had grossly underestimated. The courtroom transformed into a battleground where the truth steadily gained ground. What had begun as a contest of wills and legal technicalities grew into a powerful narrative affirming the resilience of silent, steadfast love. My testimony, the evidence, the witness accounts, they all converged to paint a picture Jonathan had tried to erase. Between sessions, I retreated to a quiet room where the weight of the trial settled around me. My heart raced with tension, but my mind remained sharp, focused on the task ahead. Clara was there too, her calm support bolstering my resolve. Together, we reviewed the day's developments, anticipating Jonathan's next moves, refining our approach. The fight was far from over, but the path ahead was clearer. Despite the fatigue gnawing at my edges, I found strength in every detail uncovered, every testimony collected, every truth laid bare. The courtroom was no longer just a stage for dispute. It had become a place of reckoning where the silent battles of years bore fruit in quiet triumph. A particularly moving moment came when Clara called a family friend to the stand, a woman who had shared the journey with us from the early days after my husband's death. Her voice carried the weight of lived experience, speaking of nights when I worked late into exhaustion, managing household bills single-handedly, and nurturing Jonathan through challenges that shaped us both. Her testimony was a bridge between past sacrifices and the present fight for justice. That witness's words stirred something deep within me. The long-ago sacrifices, the tears and laughter, the small victories I cherished were no longer hidden. They became the armor that protected my dignity and the weapon that pierced the veil of Jonathan's false narrative. Clara's sharp cross-examination further exposed Jonathan's entitlement, revealing fractures in his logic and character. I sat quietly, absorbing the unfolding drama, fortified by the truth that had sustained me through the darkest hours. As the trial wore on, Jonathan's confidence waned. The cracks in his armor spread, and the nervous tension became apparent. His polished facade gave way to a man struggling to reconcile his greed with the reality of a mother fighting back, not with fury, but with patience and unyielding will. I held my composure through every twist of the trial, reminding myself of the deeper purpose behind this struggle. It was a fight not just for possessions, but for recognition, of years of love, sacrifice, and silent battles carried on without reward or acknowledgement. On the day of closing arguments, I stood once more, heart pounding yet voice steady. I wove together the threads of evidence and testimony into a narrative that no one in that courtroom could ignore. I spoke not merely as a mother betrayed, but as a woman who had reclaimed her identity through resilience and truth. Jonathan's final words fell flat against the wall of undeniable proof. The judge listened solemnly, preparing to deliver a verdict that would echo far beyond legalities into the realm of justice and dignity. When the verdict was read, the courtroom fell into a profound silence, broken only by the steady rhythms of my breathing. Relief, like sunlight after a storm, flooded through me. Justice had been served, my dignity restored. Stepping out of the courthouse, the sunlight warmed my face, and with each step, I reclaimed a piece of my life stolen by betrayal. Jonathan's defeated demeanor stood in stark contrast to the quiet pride rising within me. The house I had built, the sacrifices I had made, remained mine, undiminished and honored. This moment marked far more than a legal victory. It was the culmination of years of silent endurance transformed into power. I had stepped out from the shadows, not with noise and fury, but with the resolute strength of a woman who refused to be broken or forgotten. This was my reclaiming, quiet yet unyielding, a testament to love, sacrifice, and the courage found in the silent battles we fight for those we hold dear. The cracks in Jonathan's carefully constructed facade deepened as the trial wore on. Each piece of evidence, every witness testimony, dismantled the entitlement he had wielded like a weapon against me. What he once believed was a sure path to dominance became a road strewn with traps laid by patience, wisdom, and years of silent endurance. His nervous tension became palpable, the mask of confidence slipping to reveal a man struggling to reconcile greed with the truth that his mother was far stronger than he had ever imagined. Throughout every twist and turn of the trial, I held firm, drawing on wellsprings of courage built from decades of sacrifice. This battle was more than a mere fight over possessions. It was a struggle for recognition of the profound, often invisible labor of motherhood that had shaped my life. My love, anguish, and perseverance had long gone unnoticed by Jonathan, and now, in this courtroom, I demanded that truth be seen and honored. On the day of closing arguments, I rose again, heart pounding but voice measured and strong. I wove together every fragment of evidence, every witness's heartfelt testimony, crafting a narrative no one could ignore. It was a story of betrayal, yes, but also of resilience, of a woman who refused to be erased, who reclaimed her identity through untold sacrifices and silent battles. I spoke not just as a mother ignored, but as a force resurrected by truth. Jonathan's final defense was hollow against this tide of undeniable proof. His words, once full of arrogance and certainty, faltered under the weight of clear facts and unwavering witness statements. The judge, solemn and contemplative, absorbed every aspect of the case, a jury not just to law, but justice and dignity. As the verdict was delivered, a heavy silence fell over the courtroom. My breath drew steady as relief washed over me like gentle sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Justice had been served, and with it, a restoration of my dignity and rightful place. The years of quiet suffering, patience, and fortitude had culminated in a powerful vindication. Exiting the courthouse, the warmth of the sun kissed my face like a benediction. Each step away from the courthouse was a step reclaiming my stolen life. Jonathan's defeated posture, once so full of swagger, now revealed a stark contrast to the calm pride that surged within me. The house I had built, the sacrifices that lined each brick, remained mine, untouched and honored. This victory was far more than a legal triumph. It was the crystallization of years spent enduring betrayal, years that had turned pain into power. I stepped from the shadows of doubt and dismissal, not with boisterous triumph, but with the solemn strength forged in quiet endurance. The reclaiming was quiet, yet unyielding, a testament not just to my personal journey, but to the universal truth about the silent battles mothers wage every day. It was proof that strength is not always loud. It often lies in patience, resilience, and the courage to hold firm when the world is ready to let you fall. But victory carried with it a profound solitude. Jonathan's face lingered in my mind, not just the defeated son who challenged me, but the boy I once held close. The breach between us felt profound and painful, a silent reminder that some wounds run deeper than any court ruling can heal. Our relationship, frayed and broken, was a sorrow I had yet to fully reckon with. The house, my sanctuary, became a place of reflection. Every creak and shadow whispered memories, both joyous and painful, that framed the story of our family. Yet its walls now carried a livelier energy, as if they too rejoiced in the strength I had reclaimed. Days passed slowly as I settled back into life free from fear and uncertainty. I found solace in the small moments, sunlight slanting through the windows, the soft rustle of pages as I revisited old letters, the familiar scent of the garden outside. These simple things became anchors, reminders that life goes on, and that I had the power to shape its coming seasons. Yet beneath the calm, the ache of Jonathan's absence lingered, a quiet hollow in the heart of victory. I grieved not only the betrayal, but the lost connection to a son I had once known so well. Forgiveness remained a distant shore, one that could only be reached if and when wounds healed honestly and fully. In the soft evenings, I began to rebuild not only my home, but my spirit. Music returned to my life. The piano in the corner, silent for too long, now played softly again, filling rooms with gentle notes that spoke of healing and hope. Old friends re-entered my world, offering support and warmth that had been sorely missed during the darkest moments. Financial stability, once fragile and threatened, was now securely in place. With Clara's guidance, I organized my affairs carefully, ensuring that my home and assets were protected from future threats. The legal battle might have ended, but the vigilance born from it would remain. This new chapter unfolded quietly but with profound power. I was no longer the fragile woman shadowed by betrayal, but a mother transformed by resilience and courage. My strength, once hidden beneath years of silent sacrifice, now shone steadily, a beacon not just for myself, but for anyone who had known pain and perseverance. As the sun set each evening, painting the sky with strokes of gold and pink, I found peace in the knowledge that I had fought, not with rage or loud cries, but with patient, unwavering resolve. The silent battles waged in shadows had given way to a radiant, unbreakable light within me. This light would guide me forward, carrying the lessons of love, loss, and strength that I had gathered along the way. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready, ready to face whatever came with a spirit reborn and a heart fortified by the quiet power of justice reclaimed. The verdict felt like a gentle weight lifting from my shoulders, a deep exhale after a long-held breath. Watching Jonathan walk away, defeated and diminished, stirred a mix of emotions inside me. Relief first, then sorrow, and finally a fragile sense of freedom I had almost forgotten was possible. The silence that followed the judge's words filled the courtroom, heavy yet somehow hopeful, marking not just an ending, but the quiet promise of a new beginning. Returning home, the walls welcomed me like old companions, their familiar presence soothing the turmoil that still churned within. This house, more than wood and stone, held the story of years woven with sacrifice and love, a testament to my endurance. Holding the keys in my hand, I felt the solid truth of what they represented, the reclaiming of a life nearly stolen, a sanctuary restored. In the days that followed, life settled into a calm rhythm. The house transformed from a battleground into a haven, a place where I could breathe deeply and envision a future not defined by betrayal, but by choice. I embraced the quiet joy of simple freedoms, the rays of morning light spilling through windows, the gentle hum of the neighborhood stirring awake. These small moments became markers of healing. Memories wove through my days, the nights of long shifts to pay for Jonathan's music lessons, the care and strength summoned after his father's death, the love hidden in every corner of this home. Those sacrifices had carved the person I had become, a woman made resilient by quiet battles and unwavering dedication. Yet beneath the peace, a hollow ache lingered, the absence of the son I once knew, the crumbling of the bond forged over years. I grieved the loss not only of what had been, but also the possibility of restoration. Forgiveness seemed distant, a barely reachable shore that required time and truth to approach. Slowly, I returned to the rhythms that had once brought me comfort, the touch of piano keys beneath my fingers, the fragrant bloom of flowers tended with care, and the warmth of old friends whose support was steady and true. These became threads in the tapestry of my healing, weaving together fragments of a life renewed. Financial security, once fragile and threatened, now offered solid ground. Under Clara's careful guidance, I reorganized my affairs thoughtfully, ensuring this home and all I had fought for remained protected. The courtroom battle may have ended, but vigilance and care would remain my ongoing guardians. As the evenings faded into night, painting the sky with soft shades of gold and rose, a deep peace settled within me. My strength, long compressed beneath layers of silence and sacrifice, now shone steady, a light forged in resilience and quiet courage. It was a beacon not just for myself, but for anyone who had borne pain with perseverance. I understood then that my story was not defined by betrayal, but by how I chose to respond, to rise patiently, to reclaim gently, yet with firm resolve. The light within me, bright and unwavering, would guide my steps forward. Though the road ahead was uncertain, I was ready to face each new day with a heart fortified by the lessons of love, loss, and justice reclaimed in quiet strength.